Dr. Sally Nazari, where we look at you beyond the couch and build ways to enrich your life, share your triumphs, achieve your goals, and most importantly, where we'll be celebrating you. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Couch podcast. I'm your host, licensed psychologist, Dr. Sally Nazari, and I'm excited to continue our discussion of depression. I also have a really exciting announcement that I can't wait to share at the end of the episode. So last week, I gave you an overview of how depression can get in the way of us living the celebratory and fulfilling life that we're all looking for. It can leave us feeling stuck in a rut, down and out of sorts, and even just weepy, tearful, fatigued, and even overwhelmed. If you missed it, check the show notes for an overview and introduction to what depression often looks like and how it shows up for us. Now, today, I wanted to expand on that and address some ways we can start to work towards shuffling depression around and getting back on track. That way, we can start to feel our mood become more lifted, more like our old selves, reconnecting with our loved ones and the hobbies and interests that we once enjoyed, and feel more connected and centered in our bodies again. So, what are some ways that we can start to alleviate depression? First, it's important to make sure that we have the support of a licensed mental health professional. You might remember from last time that often, depression brings with it a cognitive component that can reshape our belief system about the world, ourselves, and others. Our patterns of thinking can change and affect the way we perceive what we're experiencing. Think of it this way. If we were to put on a pair of glasses that tinted the world with a particular mindset, everything we encounter is filtered through these lenses. Depression affects our thinking patterns in this way. Our thinking patterns then have an impact on our moods and our actions, but also the remainder of our thoughts. In turn, our actions and feelings further affect our thinking patterns. Here's the thing. We can begin to learn when the types of thinking patterns that contribute to depression are activated and learn to not only modify them, but also learn how to keep them from taking over our emotions and behaviors. A licensed mental health professional can help us to begin to identify these particular sets of beliefs and challenge them gently so that we can begin removing what I like to call depressogenic glasses. This process refers to one type of psychotherapy for depression called cognitive restructuring, a part of CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy. What we're doing is restructuring or recreating the infrastructure of your belief system. It's important to remember that other types of therapies can address additional areas affected by depression. For example, as we talked about last time, depression often erodes our sense of confidence and self-worth and disrupts our relationships with friends, family, partners, and even colleagues. Psychotherapy can help us relate to the people in our lives in a different way and to learn to connect with ourselves differently also. This way, we can begin to heal our relationships and treat ourselves in a more compassionate way that allows us to shine in the ways we can. In addition to therapy, there are other supplemental things that can help us get the reins of depression back under control. Ensuring that we're sleeping soundly and in a restorative way is an important component of managing depression. If we're having a hard time falling asleep, or we're waking up throughout the night, or maybe even just not sleeping long enough or for too long, which we mentioned last time is a common part of depression, our mood can take a hit. The thing is that not only are we now fatigued and tired, we're less resilient to taking on the day-to-day stresses that are bound to happen. This in turn further compounds our depressive mood and makes us more prone to the depressive symptoms that can make it tough to engage in the meaningful aspects of our lives. And when our mood is off, we also have a harder time falling asleep. It can become a tough, vicious cycle. I will be devoting the next 2 episodes on the role of sleep and how we can get more and better sleep. But for now, let's keep in mind that ensuring we're sleeping adequately and well enough to feel rested and alert the next day can help us begin to get some of our depressive symptoms alleviated. One thing we see when a person is struggling with depression is a reduction in both activities and a sense of fulfillment or pleasure. For example, you might find yourself having a hard time doing things that once felt fun or exciting, or even just routine things that were part of your day-to-day. It might feel like it's hard to keep with your routine tasks, and we may begin to berate ourselves as a result. Behavioral activation can be a way of addressing this reduction in activity, pleasure, and the ongoing cycle of feeling guilty or even worthless that accompanies this. Behavioral activation refers to a systematic way of scheduling in activities that leave you feeling accomplished and ones that were enjoyable. We want to make sure that we do this in small doses, or bite-sized pieces, as I like to say. Now, remember, as long as we're doing more than we were before, and there's a sense of feeling like we've done something productive and worthwhile that also felt positive in some way, we're making use of behavioral activation techniques. In the show notes, I've left a list of pleasant events that can be scheduled into your routine so that you can get started with behavioral activation in bite-sized pieces. Related to our level of activity and the reduction that depression brings on, we also want to start getting moving to help alleviate depression. Not only have studies looked at the feel-good endorphins that are released when we participate in mild to moderate exercises, but the combination of mindful attention to our movement and breathing can bring with it a sense of relief from a negative or difficult emotional state, such as depression. In fact, we can make use of mindfulness as well for a mindful movement activity and even think of this as part of our behavioral activation plan. Check out my Mindful Monday Mindful Movement episode for a simple guided movement practice suitable for people of all mobility and fitness levels. Remember, getting moving doesn't have to mean training for a marathon or triathlon. A simple walk around the block or during your lunch can be sufficient to alleviate depression. Now, just a bit more on using mindfulness to help us shuffle around depressive feelings. Remember a couple of minutes ago that depression has a cognitive component to it. What that means is that our thinking patterns can be colored by that depressive lens, and often some of those automatic unconscious thoughts that we have without knowing have an effect on our mood. Mindfulness can help us learn to notice those thoughts without further berating ourselves so that we can start to challenge them and allow ourselves to have different experiences. Mindfulness can also help us with our sleep patterns by noticing what's getting in the way of our sufficient, restful sleep. It can also be a tool in our behavioral activation. Through the mindful awareness of our experiences without judgment, we can begin to reconnect with the sense of pleasure, joy, and accomplishment in the activities that have become hard for us to participate in and even enjoy. For some ways to get started using mindfulness in your day-to-day life, listen to the Mindful Monday mini-series where I not only give you an overview and tips on how to get started, but also a series of guided practices for you to try in your life. In fact, we're due for our monthly Mindful Monday episode coming up soon. Before I wrap up for today, I promised that I would share an announcement that I've been excited to make. Since the launch of Beyond the Couch podcast, I've conducted only solo episodes. It has been so meaningful for me to connect with my listeners in this way and to provide this information for you and for the community. I wanted to set a foundation of elemental information before moving on to add a bit more. Beginning with episode 25, I will be inviting guests to share their expertise, tips, and information alongside me as well, and I can't wait to bring that to you guys. I've already started the interviews, and I can tell you that so far they are phenomenal and bring a ton of valuable information so that you can get even more clarity on how to shape the life that you want to celebrate. In the meantime, we've wrapped up with how to better understand and act on relieving depression today. Don't forget to download your Pleasant Events Behavioral Activation schedule in the show notes. The next 2 episodes will focus on sleep before we get started with our expert guest interviews, and I can't wait. Until then, take care. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Couch podcast, a space for celebrating you. The contents of this episode are for informational and supplemental purposes only, and not a substitute for professional services. For more access to you beyond the couch, check out www.drsallynazari.com.